Greetings, my friends. We are all interested in the Plan 9x9 podcast, for that is where you and I are going to spend the next hour of our lives. And remember, my friends, podcasts such as these are made possible by listeners like these. Kenny Santatito, Stephen Turek, Dennis, and how could we fail to mention Mitch Gonzalez. Let us punish the guilty. Let us reward the innocent. My friends, can your hearts stand the Plan 9x9 podcast?
For the first time, we are bringing to you the full story of what happened.
What plan will you follow now?
Plan 9. It's been absolutely impossible to work through these Earth creatures. Their soul is too controlled.
Why do I always get hooked up with these spook details? Monsters, graves, bodies.
Oh, all right.
Well, it was covered up by the higher echelon.
I am a soldier of our planet. We did not come here as enemies. We came only with friendly intentions, to talk, to ask your aid for the whole universe. But your governments of Earth refused even to accept our existence.
Flying saucers, Captain, are still a rumor.
Now toddle off and fly your flying machine, darling. But if you see any more flying saucers, will you tell them to pick another house to buzz?
Minutes later, the police arrived at the scene.
Who found them?
The man and girl. The morgue wagon ought to be along most any time.
You get their statement?
Yeah, they're pretty scared.
Finding a mess like this ought to make anyone frightened.
You believe there are such things as flying saucers, Colonel?
Tell you one thing, if a little green man pops out at me, I'm shooting first and asking questions later.
You realize there's a government directive stating that there is no such thing as a flying saucer.
You're a headstrong young man.
Those incidents in the graveyard these past few days just got me worried.
Don't like hearing noises, especially when there ain't supposed to be any. Yeah, sort of spooky-like.
Shall we talk now or wait?
Go ahead, my friend.
We are more than halfway through Plan 9 from Outer Space with this fifth segment of the film. We're calling it Plan 5, and we are joined this time around by somebody that I've never spoken with before, and I don't think Scott Morris, you've spoken with him before either, have you?
Don't ask me any questions. I'm just a hard hand, just like you.
Okay, this is the kind of recording we're going to have today. Excellent. Well, I'd like to welcome to Plan 9x9 Evan Quiring, a comic book artist and writer that I stumbled across not too long ago when I discovered his comic book Lucha Mystery. Welcome to Plan 9x9, Evan.
There you go. Hi. How's everyone today?
I'm great, Scott.
Yep, I'm doing well as well.
So Lucha Mystery is a luchador superhero comic book. And we'll talk about his Plan 9 connections here, but Evan, how long have you been creating comics?
I guess on and off since 2002. I've been doing comics or had stuff published, just like indie comics, of course. And in between 2002 and now, I guess I would start up bands and sort of that would take time away from comics and stuff. So, but now I'm back just on comics full time. And I've always liked B movies, and I've always liked luchador movies. Lucha Mystery is basically my love letter to like those B movies I watched, much like Plan 9, and lucha movies like with El Santo and Blue Demon. I just kind of was just sort of throw all those elements into one story kind of thing, or one continuous series, and it takes place in 1964 San Diego, because that's probably my favorite city. And it just sort of had some ideas and just strung them all together and trying to make a cohesive story. So I try to make it just a really a fun, enjoyable read.
I was attracted to it because of the luchador thing. People who listen to my main podcast, Monster Kid Radio, know that I love me some luchador monster movies. Yeah. But as I was reading it, I wasn't expecting the Plan 9 from Outer Space connections. There are lines of dialogue. You have characters saying things that are lifted straight from Plan 9. And I thought, okay, this is somebody I got to chat with.
It's homages. Just, figured certain lines would fit certain situations,
I'm not familiar with it other than what you shared with me on Facebook, seeing what you've posted. Unlike Derek, my luchador experience is very, very, very minimal, but I do love quote-unquote bad movies and B movies and that kind of stuff. And now hearing that is a part of it as well, I may be more interested in picking it up.
Yeah, everyone should pick it up. Just go to Indie Planet and order your books.
Well, listeners can get in on the ground floor right now because the first 2 issues are available, like you said, Indie Planet, and you can also get it through Comixology. It is available digitally as well, so you can get your hands on it. No excuse not to be able to read it. I've had a lot of fun with it, and I can't wait for issue 3. Well, the Plan 9 connection is strong.
Do you remember the first time you saw Plan 9?
Oh, first, that was, I guess, around 1994 because the Ed Wood movie came out. And then my friend Rob was like, Tim Burton made a movie about the worst director of all time. And I was like, okay, that sounds, because I really like biopics kind of thing. So I checked it out. And then as it was, my girlfriend at the time, or she had satellite or something, and they got channels from the States, and they were doing like an Ed Wood marathon. So she taped Plan 9, Bride of the Monster, and Night of the Ghouls, and just gave me a tape. That was the first time I saw Plan 9. So 94 and 95, and I just was enamored by not just the movie itself, but just the whole crazy production story behind the thing. Like how Ed Wood managed to get this thing made despite everything.
That's been a through line with a lot of people that we've talked to about Plan 9 in previous episodes of this podcast, as well as later ones, that there's the connection or the draw to a guy who got it done no matter what.
Yeah, really. Yeah, and that's the thing. It was, truth be told, like, I think Ed Wood had good he had good plot ideas. Like, I think the basic ideas for the plots were good. Just his execution, not so much.
Scott, you want to ask him the other question we're asking everybody?
We think it would be interesting to find out what you think one of the first 8 plans to take over the Earth would have been.
Let's see. I'd say first one would be accepting transvestites, or I guess now, which actually, that being said, Glenn or Glenda, again, I think he had good intentions, but I think just his execution was just, is this a documentary, an art house film? What the hell is going on? And what's with the condescending narrative and stuff like that? So I think, okay, number one, be accept transgender people or transvestite, which, let's, all in this together. So why not? So that would be the first one. And this is just right off the cuff. Plan 2 from outer space would be, go to the streets of Laredo and do something there. And then Plan 3 would be... Okay. Plan 2 would be the ghoul goes west. Plan 3 would be the go to the streets of Laredo. Plan 4 would be find Bela Lugosi. Plan 5 would be... you guys put me on the spot here.
We're doing it to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Plan 5, go see Bela Lugosi. I should be writing this down. Okay, Go goes west, go Streets of Laredo, find Bela Lugosi. What am I on? 6? Okay, find Bela or Dr. Warnoff. Go to Willow's Lake or whatever the place was called in Bride of the Monster. Make a race of atomic Superman which will conquer the world. Be hunted, despised, living like an animal. Plan 6 would be, I don't know, do that, live like an animal, build a monster, whatever, get blown up by cops. Plan 7 would be go to an abandoned movie theater and see like a scary ghost lady and check out Final Curtain, which I only watched earlier this year anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. So go to some abandoned movie theater and let's see. One more. Okay. Plan 8 would be break up with your girlfriend, go out, find someone else and marry that woman and get her and deal with one of your friends dying and go ask your chiropractor to double for him. And then Plan 9 is started. How's that? Is that okay?
I am so impressed that you have tied that back to Ed Wood so beautifully. That was awesome.
Yeah. And I'm a little tired.
Yes. Yeah, you went above and beyond all the other people we've asked. We just asked for one plan, but you just knocked it out of the park. That was awesome.
Yeah, I wasn't going to cut you off. Now I was like, okay, he's going for it. This
is great.
On
a roll. I wasn't going to stop him either.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was like, I really shouldn't. It'd be bad for radio, online or otherwise, if I ran to the other room and wait. So yeah, okay, here we go. Don't ask me to repeat that. I don't remember what I just said.
Okay, we were recording it. We were recording it for posterity. So
right.
And for everybody that's been listening along so far,
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to remind everybody that when we get to the last episode, Derek and I are going to reveal what we think one of the first 8 plans were as well. So
now I want to tie mine into Ed Wood somehow, though. So you've given me some ideas. This is great. All right. So we are going to be talking about the 5th segment of this film. Let me get the exact numbers here. Computer, go faster.
Make computer go faster. What a wonderful age of technology we live in the future, my friends.
I like this guy, Scott.
Oh, thanks, everybody. They like me. They really like me.
All right, so we're going to be talking about minutes 36 through 45 of Plan 9 Outer Space. We open this section with the police in the cemetery looking around, trying to figure out what's going on, and we see probably one of the most iconic images from this film, and that zombified Inspector Clay and Vampira standing together. This image of Inspector Clay, I love him as a zombie. He looks wonderful. Vampira doesn't have as much makeup on her, but really does she need it? And we also see Eros and Tana in their spaceship where they let them in, and they're told to turn off the electrodes to make them stop, because if you don't, they may go after the aliens themselves, because apparently they can't tell the difference between the aliens and the humans. The old man also enters the spaceship, and that old man is played again by Lugosi, as well as the chiropractor, kind of going back and forth there. There are some great lines in this sequence, in this 5th segment. It's tough to find something when you don't know what you're looking for, says one of the cops to the other. And just the cops talking back and forth.
It's insane.
I wouldn't say their chemistry, but yeah.
I've already referenced the line that I really like from this. When Kelton tells Jamie, don't ask me any questions. I'm just a hard hand. I don't know what he means by hard hand. I was thinking
hired hand, isn't it? But yeah, it sounds a lot like hard hand.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's probably the original script was hired hand, but he definitely sounds like hard hand.
Yeah, because they were probably all drunk. That's why.
Maybe.
You'd have to be.
Well, you did smell those spirits on Farmer Calder's breath. Maybe they were passing those spirits around.
Well, don't forget Miss Trent claims to have seen them too, and she didn't have anything on her breath.
Well, she's just a hysterical woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, it was kind of progressive. A police officer says this, but the detective lieutenant is like, well, hold on a minute. We saw it too, kind of standing up for her, which I thought was kind of nice.
Yep.
I just want to back up and just notice there's, for an advanced space saucer ship, whatever, there's an awful lot of antiques in that spaceship. Perhaps they were lifted that from an antique store or something. Or you just notice there's a lot of wooden tables in the spaceship. I don't know if that was just like Ed Wood's furniture because he needed something. And I'm pretty sure all that equipment, I use that term with quotation fingers, I think that's probably from Dr. Vornov's lab, if I'm not mistaken.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And the conversation with Duke Moore, and I forget the other guy who played the other cop. The cops are just insane in this town. Like, Duke Moore just obviously does not have a firearms permit or anything, because they're just waving their guns around and pointing to each other, scratching their faces and stuff. It's like, oh my God.
Is it in this sequence where he adjusts his hat on his head with the barrel of the gun?
No, it isn't. But when he's talking to the non-incompetent patrol man, they both just have their guns drawn, and they're just just nonchalantly just waving them around.
Yeah, what gets me is Lieutenant Harper. He's actually using his gun to point at the other guy. So he's pointing his gun at the other guy.
Yeah, like, what the hell's wrong with you? Get away from me, you freak. Oh, these guys no wonder everyone's getting killed in this.
Well, there is a rumor that supposedly he was doing that on purpose.
Probably.
Just to see if he could get away with it. And nothing was ever said.
Really? What a surprise. It's great. Print it.
Yep.
What's to protect? It was perfect.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Hey, we don't have a permit. Run.
Yeah. Right. The gunplay in this, the way they handle the gun, it's like you said, it's insane. It's just crazy. But, it's an Ed Wood movie, and you've already mentioned a couple of times, Evan, the execution is not always the best here.
No. Like again, good plot ideas. If you got someone else to do everything else, if you actually had like a budget, like again, the plots are good. Night of the Ghouls, honestly, is probably my favorite Ed Wood movie because it's actually like a really good plot. But just want to say the thing about Duke Moore, the gun waving detective there, the gun scratching detective, he's actually a pretty good actor. I thought he was really good in Night of the Ghouls. Just get rid of his mustache and he's awesome. So
Night of the Ghouls is really a hidden gem. If people haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's really good.
Yeah.
All right. So the flying saucer takes off, and the police spend an awful lot of time debating whether or not it was a flying saucer.
It was a saucer. A flying saucer?
Right.
Did the time come up there?
And I love the detective lieutenant here. He's like, well, it's a saucer. Well, what about the lights? But you heard the sound, right? Well, it wasn't the same, but that's what it was. It's like, come on.
What I love is right after he says, many times the saucer has a glow or a light, not to have a light of any kind for that matter. And the officer goes,
That proves it.
Okay.
That's why he's the detective lieutenant.
Yep.
Sometimes it's just the brakes, Joe.
So as they're stumbling around the grave yard, the cemetery, they find Inspector Clay's opened grave. They were all at the funeral, but they don't recognize that this is where they buried their fallen comrade. This spot looks familiar, though.
Yeah, just the day before.
You were here, just yesterday, or in terms of the film, about 20 minutes ago. You were just there.
And you think like the cemetery of Quality Studios is what I think it was like 6 by 20 or something like that. So I mean, okay, but anyways, I digress.
Yeah. Detective Lieutenant sends one of the officers into the grave to kind of see what's going on. After they just got done saying they probably don't have the permission to do so, they send one down in there. Check it out and try to figure out what's going on. Now, we don't actually see an open coffin or anything like that, but we do see that police officer seeming like he's riding some sort of bucking bronco while he's down in the hole. I don't know why he's moving around the way he is.
It's Paul really Marco acting. That's why. Anyways, go on. Sorry.
They do eventually discover it's Inspector Clay's grave.
Apparently, none of these officers know how to read because the headstone would be there.
Well, the headstone fell into the grave. They do make that point. And we actually see that in the previous scene when Thor rises.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I've seen this movie so many times, and I just forget that's why you guys have a podcast, and I'm just some guy.
Well, sometimes that's just the breaks.
Yeah.
Hand me that flashlight. Well, how about a match? Well, I guess that'll work. Weird dialogue here. I don't know if they're just trying to pad the length or what, but it seems odd.
Yeah, well, go figure, huh?
Well, we get a little bit of Criswell in this sequence as well. He's going to narrate us off to the Pentagon. And anytime you can get Criswell into this film, it makes it 10 times better for me because I just love the man's voice. Doesn't really do much here other than just to say, okay, we're going to the Pentagon.
But meanwhile, in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C.
I like how Criswell has narrative when there doesn't need to be any.
Right. Yeah, probably didn't really need that bit. He could have pointed out the boom mic we're about to see, though.
Well,
right.
Before we leave the shot of the Pentagon, I do want to say the very first time I saw this film, they show the plane flying over the Pentagon, and I'm like, is that Jeff's plane? What's going on here? Jeff Trent. He's a pilot. Oh, yeah. Is it him flying over the Pentagon? But no, it's not.
Okay.
I'm not really up on my aviation thing. Is that's a passenger plane or is that a military? I can't really.
I thought it was a passenger plane the first time I saw it, so I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
We do get to Colonel Edwards' office, and like I said, we do see that boom mic.
That's General Roberts' office. Colonel Edwards comes in to see him.
You're right. I'm sorry. My bad there. But yeah, so we do see the boom mic before Colonel Edwards comes in. And it's so obvious now. It makes me wonder if the first time I saw this film, I can't remember if I remembered seeing the boom mic. It's pretty obvious though, right?
But that's not the obvious thing that stands out to me on this office.
Okay.
We're in we're in the Pentagon. Why does he have a map from Santa Fe Railroad on the wall?
because he won it at an auction. I don't know.
I don't know.
He won it at a wedding reception for a.
I mean, wouldn't the military have maps? They wouldn't have to go to the train yard and say, "Hey, can we have one of your maps?"
Because they're cheap. I don't know. They want to save money so they can,
It's something Ed Wood had at home and decided to put it, really.
I know. It just cracks me up. It's very obvious the Santa Fe Railroad logo in the lower left-hand corner of the map.
Well, maybe it's just a personalized thing because, like, the rest of the office kind of looks like a child's bedroom, like a boy's bedroom, because you got toy rockets and you got, like, a space poster or something.
Yep.
So, something I probably would have had in my room as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
I had like outer space wallpaper. It was pretty cool. So...
Yeah,
I would love to have that toy rocket. That looks awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be sweet. I know they're some companies reissuing models of the flying saucer that Ed Wood used for the flying saucers in the film. But I would love to see somebody release like replicas of like some of these rockets and such, just to have them.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. There's once in a while there'll be like antique stores here in Winnipeg or wherever, like collectible stores that'll have like people clean out their attics or whatever, and there'll be like toy robots like from the 50s and stuff. There was one place that had a whole bunch of them in the window, and genius that I am, I just would walk by and not buy them. I think they were like going for like $12 or something insane like that. I did buy like a toy robot from Japan. It was like a Robbie the Robot, but it's red. Anyways, I bought that from like a collectible store a while ago. But anyway, sorry, getting off topic here.
Sometimes so, and I wonder how much of the things that we see in these films by Ed Wood in particular are just things that he saw at a secondhand shop somewhere, a pawn shop somewhere. And it's like, okay, we got to put this on the wall. And then for some reason had a railroad map, but just to decorate the set with.
Well, I do want to say one more thing about the rocket is how they're shown in B movies, especially how they land. And I want to thank Elon Musk from turning that to science fact instead of science fiction, how rockets land.
Yeah, right?
Hey, maybe we should try to get him on the show.
Yeah, really, just explain the... I don't know, the physics of Plan 9 or any other 50 sci-fi movie.
Oh, wow. Well, during this conversation, Edwards and Roberts, they're talking about flying saucers, and Roberts is laying it on pretty thick. They don't exist. What do you think? Well, yes, I saw that. Well, oh, yeah, a lot of yes, sirs. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How can I hope to hold down my command if I didn't believe in what I saw and shot at? Well,
yep.
I love this scene because it makes absolutely no sense. It's like, are you like effing with me? Seriously, it's the dialogue it's just nuts. It's like, there are flying saucers. No, it's like, there's no such thing as flying saucer. Whatever he says, like, yes, sir, there are flying saucers. It's like, so where are you going with this? Like, what?
Well, I also like when Robert says, you realize it's a government directive that's stating there's no such thing as flying saucers, and now you're breaking that rule by saying that you believe in them?
This could mean a court-martial.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
He's totally messing with them. Like, he's just...
Yep.
I think who's Lyle Talbot? What's his name again? That's Colonel Edwards?
Lyle Talbot was Roberts. Colonel Edwards was Tom Keene.
Yep.
Tom Keene. Okay, so who's the guy? Okay, who's the guy at the desk?
That's Roberts.
Okay, so he must be like some sort of sociopath because he's just messing with the other guy. They're flying saucers, but we can't say. You could get court-martialed. I don't like you. Get out. He's totally like, this scene is just messed up. God bless you, Ed Wood.
Well, during this sequence, we also learned that the aliens have been trying to communicate with us lowly humans, and eventually we figured it out by developing a language computer, a machine that breaks down any language to our own.
They beat Star Trek.
Yeah.
No universal translator.
When we do listen to the message from Eros, they call it something else. He calls it, and I tried to write it down because I don't...
Dictorobatary. Don't ask me how I know that.
Yes, Dictorobatary.
I tried to write it down phonetically. I'd love to know how it's spelled, and yeah.
No one knows, even Ed Wood.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
And even during this sequence, even though we haven't really seen Eros interact with any of the humans yet directly, even during this initial message where they're trying to say we're here in peace, we want to work with you, he's still arrogant.
Since the beginning of your time, we have been far beyond your planet. It has taken you centuries to even grasp what we developed eons of your years ago. Do you still believe it impossible we exist? You didn't actually think you were the only inhabited planet in the universe.
And he's like, by the way, I'm giving you the finger. You can't see this, but I'm giving you the finger.
I have a copy of the script in front of me right now.
Okay.
And DICTOROBITARY.
All right.
Okay.
That should be under. There should be an Ed Wood trivia night or something.
I tried to spell it out. I tried to spell it out in my notes here, but I was off.
Yeah.
Robotary.
Mm-hmm.
Then next
or
up,
as you Earth put it, the language computer.
You know, my mom was watching this with me one time when Dudley Manlove, every time he was on every time he'd speak or something, my mom works in radio. And she's like, oh, he must have been an announcer back in the 50s because that voice is that's a radio voice. It's yeah.
He's got a great voice. I mean, we're kind of joking a little bit about this guy, but he really does have a good voice.
He should have done the narrative. I mean, he did the narrative in Final Curtain, which was kind of over the top and kind of not scary. But if Dudley Manlove did the narrative, it would be pretty good, I think. I don't know.
He did have a career in radio.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he was the voice of Lux Soap.
Oh. I'd want to wash myself after. I know.
Well, this pretty much brings us to the end of this sequence, too, and this particular segment of the film. There's a lot of information kind of dropped here where you learn a little bit more about Eros's personality and what he really thinks of the humans. And again, I love the cemetery sequence with them using the guns as laser pointers, basically, and just all of that, and the familiar looking grave of Inspector Clay that we were all at yesterday.
Yeah.
I love this bit. I think it's a fun part of the movie, and really we're kind of in the middle of the film, which, let's be honest, I love my Ed Wood movies, but a lot of times around the middle things start to kind of stop making sense. I think I'm implying that this movie is making sense now, which may not be accurate, but this one still kind of moves it along and gives us more information to push the plot forward. I use the word plot in air quotes.
Yeah, again, I always thought Ed Wood's plots are good. They're just simple. Okay, but if he had someone else directing or helping him direct, or if you guys ever see was it Jailbait?
I have not seen Jailbait.
The other Ed Wood movie? Okay,
I would love to see it.
Yeah, watch Jailbait. It's a weird Ed movie, and I say it's weird because there's actually really, for it's a low budget film, but it's fine. It's just you wouldn't know it's really an Ed Wood movie. There's aside from the there's a cultural segment in there that's just really cringeworthy.
Between the time that we recorded that conversation with Evan and, now, I personally have seen Jailbait. It's available on Amazon Prime, of all things. The title itself, it kind of implies certain things, kind of gives you this weird feeling, especially considering the kinds of movies Ed Wood ended up making towards the end of his career. Jailbait was actually towards the middle of his career, so, it really isn't as exploitive as the title might make you think. In fact, the title is explained in the film. Originally, the film did have another title. When Ed Wood was writing the film, it was called Hidden Face, which actually makes a lot more sense considering some of the things that happen in the movie. So the moment that Evan is referring to, though, I'm just going to give you a heads up now. Consider it a spoiler warning, but there's this really out of place blackface sequence that just kind of happens. Doesn't really have a bearing on the plot, just kind of makes you cringe. But the rest of the movie, actually, is a pretty good film.
Jailbait, the shocking story of boy-crazy girls and gun-crazy guys, the most feared of our modern underworld. Men who hate the law and abuse even those they love.
I don't even know why it's in there, but regardless, Jailbait's actually really kind of for just a solid movie. Go figure. It's silly, but it's pretty good. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of his films do feel like if they just had a little bit more polish, they would come across as, just another good B movie from the 50s.
Yeah, and you know what? The thing is, a lot of... Who was his cinematographer? Because there's legitimately a lot of good shots in Plan 9. Like you said, like the one we just saw with Tor and Vampiro walking. That's a good shot where vampires come into the screen. That's kind of eerie. Actually, it was Night of the Ghouls kind of creeped me out. You've seen it, right?
I have, yeah.
Okay,
yes. Scott, have you seen it?
Okay. Yes.
This was like back in like 96 or whatever. So I'm like living in the 3-story house like from the 1800s. And I was like in the attic kind of loft kind of thing. And it was just a weird house. Like I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that, but it's just like weird stuff would happen. Like there'd just be like, I'd be sitting down and like by the wall, it sounded like someone took their fist and just like banged the wall really loud. And I try to figure out like what the, or I just hear like weird bangs when there shouldn't be, or just weird, like sometimes I thought someone was inside the house, like, oh great, I'm being robbed or something. But anyways, so it's like 3 a.m, I'm drawing comics, and I have like my TV beside me, and I had like my VCR, and I just would play Ed Wood movies. So I'd play Plan 9, I'd play Bride the Monster, Night of the Ghouls, and just something, to listen to while I'm drawing, right? It comes to that scene where Duke Moore is like walking around, he goes and sees the mannequin or whatever. And then I'm just like, sort of just by fluke turn. And then when you see that lady smile, that just like seriously creeped the hell out of me. So it was like, Ed Wood did have some good stuff. It's such a shame that he just, it just never worked out but we still love him anyway. So
sure. The cinematographer was William C. Thompson. And I don't know if we've talked about him yet much on the show. Have we, Scott?
No, he's also been the cinematography on Night of the Ghouls and Glenn and Glenda. So he's worked with Ed Wood quite a bit.
Yeah, he did the Final Curtain short that we've talked about a couple of times, The Violent Years, just a ton of Ed Wood. And he's actually got quite a career. It goes back to the silent era. So he knew his way around a camera. How he ended up in Ed Wood's troupe or gang of cinematic misfits, I have no idea. But he did quite a bit, including things that I would love to talk about on my other podcast, on Monster Kid Radio. So, yeah, I mean, he knew what he was doing. He did Project Moonbase, which I really like.
I've always wanted to see that. I think I might actually have that. I have like the 100 movies, sci-fi movies, and 100 horror movies for like, I don't know, $20 or whatever. And it's like
a whole. Be on one of those, yeah.
He also worked on another film that I saw called Racket Girls from 1951, which was actually featured on Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh, I'm totally watching that. Is that like a evil like tennis girl gang or something like that?
What? No, this one, that's a different one, but this one is about a money launderer who uses women's wrestling group as a front for illegal activities.
I'm totally watching this. I think I might have seen it actually, but yeah, okay, thanks.
You had me at women's wrestling. I'm all in. Okay, I don't really have anything to add here other than I really hope there's a movie out there that involves an evil tennis girl gang. I just tell me there's a movie out there like that. Please tell me there is, and if there isn't, will somebody please make it?
Yeah, it's episode number 616 of MST3K.
Okay, 616. I'll write that down. Yeah. But yeah, again, there's like a lot of good shots from Ed Wood. You see it in my work. I like to think of like my Lucha mystery as El Santo meets Ed Wood kind of thing. Might be a little esoteric for most people, but you guys get it. But yeah, it'd be like sort of again, have some plots and just try to have my dialogue a little bit better. But yeah, sometimes I will pay homage and sort of just to get the rhythm going kind of thing, to get that feel.
Ed Wood definitely does have his own rhythm. I mean, you can definitely tell an Ed Wood film, and not just from the low budget production values. I mean, you can hear Ed Wood's voice so clearly in his dialogue. You can recognize it right away.
You guys ever watch, was it the one that Ed Wood wrote, Orgy of the Dead? You ever watch that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, serious? Okay, I just want to say, Orgy of the Dead makes Plan 9 look like Citizen Kane, okay? And the dialogue is very Ed Wood-esque. Well, it is.
I have seen the movie, and about the only thing I kind of enjoy is that Criswell is very prominent in the film.
Sure. He's totally blasted in that.
Yes.
Oh, he looks like he's had a rough time.
Yeah.
Like he's ready to pass out, It's like, or go.
Well, and you were saying earlier, maybe have a different director do the Ed Wood movies. Orgy of the Dead was directed by somebody else. So maybe having a different director involved might not have been as successful as we wanted it to.
Even Apostolov, so yeah, that was the thing. But yeah, okay, well, get another director, just not him.
There is a documentary floating around about Stephen Apostolov that I'd love to see.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it came out back in 2011, and it's called Dad Made Dirty Movies. I just haven't tracked it down yet.
Okay.
But supposedly it does have some material with him working with Ed Wood and his thoughts on working with Ed Wood. So, and there are some archive footage from the making of Orgy of the Dead, which I'd love to see.
Haunted World of Ed Wood, there is footage from the making of Orgy of the Dead, and I don't know, Ed Wood looks good in it. I mean, he looks, sober and clean, just hanging out with like some nice strippers, but not all the women there. Not all the women look particularly healthy in Orgy of the Dead. I'm just going to say that. Some looked very healthy, and that's always, that's fine. Everyone likes health.
Yeah.
Sorry, I brought that up.
No, I agree with what you're saying. It's got a lot of issues. It's a little rough, and the story is threadbare at best. But it still makes me smile to watch it.
Okay, it's a movie that takes place in a graveyard, a bunch of naked women dancing around. On paper, that sounds awesome. The actual execution.
Yeah. Was there anything else we wanted to mention or discuss about this particular bit of Plan 9?
Besides the fact that it's completely nuts.
It is pretty crazy. And one thing that I've learned, and I don't know, Scott, I don't assume you agree with me here. I think we've talked about this. By watching this film in these 9-minute chunks, we're learning a lot more about the movie and some of Ed Wood's pacing, but this one by itself is just all over the place.
That's true. You've got the cops and their discovery that something's happened to Inspector Clay's gravestone, and then you go all the way to the Pentagon and learn about what the Army knows and what they don't know and how they're going to become a part of the investigation in this 9 minutes. So it goes from local investigation to national investigation pretty quick.
This is one of the first films to talk about government conspiracies before government conspiracies were cool. Keep in mind, this is like 1959, so I guess they were making this in 1957, 58, and kind of like, the government's hiding secrets, which was kind of rare back then.
That's come up in a couple of the discussions we've had about this movie. This whole idea of the government's hiding something. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's not something that was part of the pop culture at the time, I feel like. It really feels unique.
It's just, run-of-the-mill stuff to us now. But I guess at the time, mind you, that was the thing about Ed Wood. I mean, made movies with transvestites. He's, kind of questioning the government. He's sticking to the old gothic horror, like stuff that just wasn't, and it's such a shame that if he was around today, he would totally be celebrated. I think he'd probably, people would help him out and give him money to make great films. And so, of course, he'd be in his 90s if he was still alive today. I think he was born 1922. 1922. He said it as Tor Johnson. Did you guys ever see the Tor Johnson on You Bet Your Life with Groucho Marx?
I have, yes.
Oh, I have not.
Okay, watch the Plan 9 Companion. It's a documentary about Plan 9 from outer space. I'm just laughing just thinking about it. It's a documentary from 1991. They, go back to Quality Studios with Conrad Brooks and take a tour of where Plan 9 was shot. They have a segment where Tor Johnson is talking to Groucho Marx and Sam Raimi does a recreation of it. It's one of the funniest things I ever said. Sam Raimi is Groucho, and then he has this friend is Tor Johnson. Oh my god, it is really funny. It's short. It's like maybe 2 minutes, but oh my god, it's hilarious. Anyways, yeah, Plan 9 Companion, check it out.
The full title is actually Flying Saucers Over Hollywood. The Plan 9 Companion.
Yes, okay. That's right. Yeah. When I'm drawing it, comics, I'll still put on an Ed Wood movie, or I'll just put it in a documentary. I'll put on that. Drawing it takes a long time to do comics and stuff like that. So because I still do it the old-fashioned way, at my drafting table with paper and pencil and ink and stuff. So
speaking of Quality Studios and where they shot the film,
I was just reading about it 3 years ago. It was sold, and the people that bought it spent $3.3 million. And they have, in turn, put $4 million into renovating it. It actually now has a bar in the bottom and 11 hotel rooms.
Oh.
You can actually stay there. And then they have mostly a recording studio. In fact, it had rehearsal rooms where the Doors, Jimi Hendrix, and Guns N' Roses practiced over in its history.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
And when they were clearing some of the area out to remodel, they found original catwalks that were there from the day that Ed Wood filmed his movies there. And they kept them there. They restored them.
Oh, wow.
That's so cool, though, right?
Yes.
That's pretty awesome.
Where are you guys located, by the way?
I'm out here in Portland, Oregon. And Scott, you're in...
West Lafayette, Indiana.
I knew that. You're one of my best friends. I don't know why I forgot that. It's early. I need more coffee.
And I'm just here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So.
It's the magic of the internet brings us all together to discuss Ed Wood.
You're totally right.
Yep.
I'm getting lost on Google Maps looking up the area around where Quality Studios was.
Well, I just shared with both of you a link to a Variety article all about the hotel.
And I'll make sure that in the show notes, I provide a link to that article over at Variety.com. This is an article by Roy Trakin that was posted back in February of this year, and yeah, it's a good read. I want to thank Evan for being part of the show. Lucha Mystery is the comic book people need to read. It's luchadors, there's aliens, there's superhero antics, and there's lots of Plan 9 from Outer Space references.
Oh, yeah, and that's just the first story arc, which is done now. The new one is going to be basically a story arc of it's Total Crime Comics, and it's basically serial killers now stalking the luchadors and stealing their masks as trophies. So I'm trying to figure out like what the hell's going on and try to what's happening. So yeah.
I like that a lot. That's great.
Thanks. Yeah.
Well, Evan, again, thanks a lot. I wish you the best with Lucha Mystery. I'm enjoying it, and Scott, man, I think you'd dig it too. It's a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to checking it out.